Good evening and welcome. Welcome to Fight CPS and Stop Taking Our Children. I'm your host, Bob Pace, and I give a warm welcome. You found the right spot if your case is with the Child Protection System. That's what I call CPS, the Child Protection System. It's a government agency that was created by Congress to inform social services that they'll create the body of social workers a way of protecting our children from neglect and abuse. That's what it's all about. And I'm afraid to tell you that there are some bad CPS, the child protection systems out there. There's some bad, there's some good. I had a bad one. And most of the people I've talked to for the last 17 months, about over 1,000 of you, from around the United States, every state, including District Columbia. I also had issues with the 21 countries that have either texted or called in. So it's a worldwide problem. It's worldwide. It's also United States wide. And I hope that our new administration with our president, who has entrusted or created a department to investigate wasteful money. And right now, CPS wastes a lot of money. What I mean by that, it's a $1 trillion business for them. They make gobs and gobs of money. So I'm glad that you found me. We're here to talk about your CPS cases. Before I get started, it's very important that I talk to you about our live stream. Now, this live stream is brought to you by Vincent W. Davis. He's the one that has created this. He's created this live stream to help people be informed. Now, we're very passionate about bringing you the information you need, sharing the stories to raise awareness, inspiring to fight CPS, to keep creating the content you love. We need your support. Production costs are rising, and every contributor makes a real difference. So what I want you to do is subscribe to the YouTube channel, CPS Defense Strategy. That's at the bottom of my screen. You want to subscribe to the CPS Defense Strategy. And I want to thank you very much for being part of the community. Now, Vincent Davis, my attorney, has wanted to start a monthly CPS newsletter. It's $1.99 per month, auto charged to a credit card. The newsletter will contain theories and articles by me, Bob Pace, CPS news from around the country or internationally, articles by attorney Vincent Davis on how to beat CPS, and articles by Vincent Davis on how to sue CPS. You also want to look into the lives of me, Bob Pace, attorney Vincent Davis, Miss G, and other platform hosts. There will also be offered discount coupons for legal consults with attorney Vincent Davis. Now, when they sign up for the newsletter, there are 3 bonuses: a private newsletter, a Facebook group, a free copy of the book that Vincent wrote called The Secret How to Fight CPS and Win, a free monthly call newsletter group, which will include live question answers with attorney Vincent Davis and other current members of the group. So this is something brand new that we just started. It's not been formalized, but we want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and we need all the help that we can get. We need all the help we can get. Now, Margaret King, welcome back. It's nice to see you this morning. It's nice to see you every day. Margaret King is a longtime member of this family here, and she comes on to help you, others, and discuss her case that's going on. Her case is a complex one. She has her grandchildren that are being taken. She has a daughter and a son, and they have children, and now they're trying to take their children. So she's hired Mr. Davis, by the way, and they're going to try to fight and get her grandbabies back. It's really complicated, but I'm glad you're here, Margaret. Is there anything new tonight you'd like to talk about? Please do so. And as I say, she's from St. Louis, Missouri. Now, there are many ways that you can interact with this live podcast. One way is just by texting in comments or questions about CPS. Please show me your first name, your city or county, the state, and if you're from outside the USA, the country. And try to be complete with your CPS case. Tell me as much as you can so I can understand you and help you. And that's me needed to see where all the trouble areas of CPS is. Now, not every CPS is bad. I want to clarify that point. Not every CPS is bad, but a great bunch of them are. And it's hard to distinguish which are the bad ones and which are the good ones. You don't know until you get involved, and then when you get involved, it's terrible. Like I was involved, and it was terrible. You know, I am a loving father. I've helped raise 6 children. I have 42 years of marriage, and I also experienced CPS firsthand. And it was very, very, very corrupt. I even tried to use their court-appointed attorneys, which was a waste of time. I even tried to fight the director and a lot of CPS managers and stuff and had numerous meetings. But the more I protested, the more I pointed out their incorrectness, they retaliated. This CPS agency is so bad that they stole my daughter. Now, I'm still angry about that. The social worker committed perjury in court, and she retaliated by telling our daughter to emancipate from the parents, change her name, seal her birth certificate, get a new birth certificate, and get a new social security card, and go live with a foster family. She was only 12 at the time, but this social worker was so vindictive because my attorney stopped the social worker from trying to push my wife's sister and husband to adopt our daughter, to be, adopted. We didn't want that to happen. And when she lied so bad in court. It was sickening. Just to start you off, and maybe some of you have the similar problem. But I trusted CPS. And I had hired Vincent Davis and another attorney named Art, who represented my wife. They're both paid professional attorneys. They both are licensed in juvenile law, family law, dependency law. They're both have gotten many children back from CPS. They are fighters. And Vincent Davis was once in foster care himself. Anyway, the social worker was under oath in court. It was being asked by Mr. Davis what kind of parents that my wife's sister and husband were. And she was saying, oh, they're great parents. Nothing wrong with them. Then he said, with a puzzled look on his face, Has there ever been domestic violence with them? Oh, no, 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 there hasn't been, Mr. Davis. They're loving parents. They would not do domestic violence. Well, then Vincent said, can you help me out? Because I have a folder here. And he opened it and he started to read report after report after report of police reports that visit the home where there was domestic violence of my wife's sister and husband. Not only was there arguments or domestic, there was physical domestic violence. They were hitting each other. Is that the environment you want to put our daughter in there? The social worker was so embarrassed. She left the courtroom in a huff. She told us parents she'd never see her daughter again. And then she showed and directed our daughter, who's 12 at the time, of how to emancipate the parents, how to remove her name. And she had a 3-part name. And her middle name was beautiful, it was Hanalei. And then to seal her birth certificate like mom and dad never existed, and create a new birth certificate with the foster care people as her parents. And on top of that, get a second Social Security card, kept the old Social Security card, and was double dipping from Social Security. I was getting $1,000 extra from my children because I was at a certain age and I was collecting Social Security. They say anybody who's receiving Social Security has children under the age of 18, then they are compensated with additional funds to take care of those children. So now she was getting $2,000 a month. $2,000. And she wasn't getting it. The foster care people were. They were double dipping. I can guarantee if Social Security knew what social service did, there'd be a war going on. And maybe there will be, because Social Services is being investigated, and so is Social Security. They'll get to the bottom. If anybody is taking funds unnecessary, that's wrong. Well, she did this up to the age of 18. So a lot of my money that I worked really hard, I've been working for over 60 years, and I have a lot of Social Security. That money did not go to me in retirement. It's going to my daughter, $2,000 a month. That's a pretty hefty amount of money. So, yes, I am angry. You probably hear me in my voice when I talk about my daughter that was stolen, that was trafficked by foster care, that was illegal every step of the way. I know, Margaret, I'm waiting for a miracle too. My daughter's 22, and I keep hoping one day she'll write me and say, can we talk? Because I have a lot to tell her. But she's 22 now, and every day gets worse and worse. Yes, the system is bad. I agree with you, Margaret. Now, another way to interact with this podcast is to be a guest on my live. I keep saying podcast. It's a live stream. For so long, I thought it was, but it's a live stream. We have video and audio, and it's live, and it's also you interact with it. So to be a guest on my live stream, all you have to do is contact my show producer, Grace. Now, Grace has an email, grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. And you need to pick a time that you want to be on my live stream. Now I'm on twice a day, 7 days a week. I come on at 10 o'clock in the morning Pacific Standard Time, and again at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. On the weekends, my morning hours are 8 o'clock on Saturday, 8 o'clock on Sunday. So that's the only change. Now, sometimes during the week, I may have to move my time around. But I'll try to let you know as soon as I can. Also, if you check the notification button down below, you'll always be notified when I'm on. You would be always notified when I'm on. So send in that request, pick a time and a day. It's 7 days a week, twice a day. It's 14 live streams. So it's either morning or in the evening. And I'd love to have you on my guest. Now, the last way that I have for you to interact on this podcast is the call me at 626-698-0990. Now, when you call me or you're a guest on my live stream, you'll get a bonus of a free 15-minute session talking to Mr. Davis. You know, that is something very valuable. Now, I have another way that you can interact with Mr. Davis. For $60, please book a discounted Zoom private consultation with Vincent Davis. You go to that website and you can get to talk to Vincent Davis for 30 minutes. That's a private consultation with Mr. Davis. It's very important. So I've said several ways you can speak to him. You can call in or be a guest and speak to him for 50 minutes for free. Or you can pay him $60 and talk to him for 30 minutes. Lastly, the phone number of his office, 888-888-6582. It's white lettering in red. Call that number if you wanted to talk to Vincent Davis right now, and they'll schedule a time and you can retain him. Make sure when you call in, you say that Bob Pace sent you. And then when you speak to Mr. Davis, tell him that Bob Pace sent you. It's really important you say that. Now, that number is also good to find out other information, like how to join that website on YouTube, the one I was talking about at the beginning of the show, or if I want to buy a book or get a book. Now, there's a new book out called The Grandparent Guide Step by Step of How to Adopt Your Grandchildren in California. Now, that guide can be used for other states, and it can also be used for parents, mothers, and fathers. So right now it's $9.99, but you can get half off if you use this discount code called PACE50, capital P, capital A, capital C, capital E, 50. And that way you can get it for half off. It's a great, great guide. I think Margaret has it and other people in this room have it too. They've told me it's pretty good. Now, Margaret says, the craziest thing ever, Bob, I never had an intimate partner violence in my entire life. And they are requesting that I take a domestic violence class that makes me laugh. I know, I didn't want to either. It was a year-long program. And I went to it. It didn't fit me. But I learned a lot of things in it. I a waste of my time. This case was going to take 3 years anyway. So that first year, I took it. I went to it regularly. I think it was once a month for 12 months, 12 classes. And it had to ride a bus, but I took it. I took it and talked to people there. So, Margaret, if you have to take it to get your children, get them off your case, I do so. You're not going to fight the system because they're corrupt. They actually want to punish you. That's what's so sad about the child protection system. They're so bad. There was a group of 8 social workers in Prescott, Arizona, that worked for the Department of Children Services, DCS. That was the child protection system in Prescott, Arizona. Now, Prescott is known for the Billy Jack series. It was a drama about things in our society in the late 60s, early 70s, and also is about the Native American Indian rights. Billy Jack was a protector. He was a martial arts specialist, but, a lot of it also led right up to that Wounded Knee incident, the modern day Wounded Knee incident of 70. I think that was in 72, if I'm not mistaken. Oh boy. I'd have to look it up. Is that Wounded Knee, which is in South Dakota. And that's near a reservation called the Rosebud Reservation. There's Standing Rock in that state, and there's another reservation too. It's sad. The Native American people were prosecuted too long, and they really were taking advantage of the child protection system until the ICWA Act of 1978. The Indian Child Welfare Act finally, after 100 years, came back to protect the Indian children and the Indians. What it basically says that if you're of Indian blood and are registered with the tribe or could be registered with the tribe, and there's 548 federal recognized tribes. So, most Indians will say you need 25% blood. That's a quarter. And you got to be registered. But what it said is that social services, or CPS, will do its hardest to find out if the family is Indian. If they are, they need to see if they're registered or could be registered. And if they are registered, then the children immediately are turned over to the Indian reservation, and the Indian reservation puts them with the family home for reunification with the family. So that is a good thing for Native American Indian children. Long time in coming, because they persecuted the Indians. They cut their hair. They told them no longer could wear the clothing of their culture. They can no longer speak the language or practice their religions. It was really a shame what they did to the Native American Indian. I'm quite interested in the Native American Indians. In fact, I'm in all Indian people. Indians. Like the First Nation people in Canada, or the Polynesians in the South Pacific, or the Aborigines in Australia. In my travels, I've seen a lot of lands. I've traveled to over 50 countries. I've lived in a half a dozen countries. And I started traveling when I was young, when I was about 3 or 4. My dad was in the Navy, so wherever they shipped him, he went. And his family came along. And he had a career in the Navy. My parents were together for 55 years, a long marriage. They were loving people, and I miss my parents badly. They were loving people. So value your families. Well, hello there, JD. Good to see you. You're bright and early. JD is from Los Angeles, California. How ironic they did that to the natives. as the pilgrims arrived to America for freedom. Yep, I know. People don't realize that the first immigrants to North America and the United States were the Native American Indians. And that name, Indian, came from Christopher Columbus because he discovered the Caribbeans and he thought he was in the spice in the Indian, where India is. And so he was calling the native people there in the Caribbeans Indians. So the name took, and that's what the people from Europe called was the Indians. And they are called the Native American Indians in the United States. But in Canada, they're called the First Nation. The First Nation. And there's that nice law because they were persecuted. Their families were torn apart. Not only, is it their fault that, their way of life is wrong? Their way of life was to take care of their people and the land. They were not very well schooled in science, those kinds of things. What Europe did and started with the Romans is that every culture started to rise in the Caribbeans and then in Europe. Europe was in the Dark Ages a long time. So for them to come over to North America and say, our way of life is better and you can't believe in the gods, you can't do, that was really sad. And they pushed the Indians further west and pushed the Indians on the reservations and took their land and took their children and took their people and murdered. They were murderers. A lot of them were murdered on there. Now, a lot of people think the Europeans were the first immigrations. No, the Indians were. They came way of Asia through the land bridge into Alaska. And you know who came after the Indians, the second immigrations? The Vikings. Yes, the Vikings are from Europe. They came to North America. They went as far west as the Mississippi to St. Louis, Missouri. There's records of Vikings in Rhode Island, up north in Maine, Nova Scotia, Greenland, Iceland. They were travelers. They were in the most nomadic, not nomadic, but the water travelers. And they were in the Atlantic Ocean. Good seafarers. They went over to England and Ireland. And yes, they were barbaric. What we classify today as barbaric. But in that time of period, it was not barbaric. Maybe they didn't eat with knives and forks, as some of the Anglo-Saxons would, or the kings and queens. But, there's a lot of things that are adapted. But what makes those immigrants that come to the United States any better than the Indian immigrants that were there? So that's enough said about our Native American Indian, my brothers. Now, JD says, interesting how that same time in 1492 was the time that the Jews, Mirandos, and others were expelled out of Spain by King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella. That is interesting. That is a really interesting fact, JD. Vikings, 6 kings, the tribe of Dan, is how the story told. Yeah. Now, Margaret says the Native American Indians in Oklahoma are to be addressed as such and not American Indians. Yeah, they frown on that. They like the word native, and it is the continent called America. And the Indians was given by Christopher Columbus, so it sticks. Anyway, we need to focus on CPS, and my time shows that we have approximately about 20 minutes left of this podcast. 20 minutes left. My number's been up. I haven't heard anybody tonight call in. I had a call in this morning, but I've had no calls in. Also, I've had nobody that wanted to be a guest on my live stream. Indigenous, yes. Natives are called indigenous, whether you're a Polynesian or a North American native. And by the way, the word native is good, but if were born here, you're much as a Native American as they are. Native Americans are people that are born in this country. I'm a Native American. Yes, I have 25% of Lakota Sioux in me. My two great grandmothers was a full-blooded Lakota Sioux, married to my great grandfather, who had 5 wives, and that was the 5th wife, not all at the same time. He was from Norway, from Bergen, Norway. He's a Viking. So my Viking grandfather married a Lakota Sioux woman and created my grandfather, who I have a picture of him in his Indian outfit and her dressed, and my great grandfather with a long mustache, blonde hair. It looks like where I got my hair from. But I'm really proud that I can say that. But what makes me so mad is that there's so many people that are government employees taking advantage of Native American Indians. Yes, I know that there's a lot of corruption going on in our government. It seems like we don't seem to control. Every time, every couple of months, we're out of money. We're out of money. Where are we going to borrow money? How are we going to balance the budget? Well, Trump is trying to fix that. President Trump is trying to fix that, and people are crying. A lot of people are being laid off. I don't like the idea of people not working. I think there must be a way that they could be corrected to what they did was wrong. I think anybody that gets laid off has to be for some serious crimes. And so there is a compromise. There's a thing there. I hope they investigate CPS, but I don't want them to let all the CPS go. That's not going to solve our problem. There are 1,000 children every day going unreported and not protected. There are parents that throw their children against the wall, beat them with sticks, tie them up with cords, whip them, and really extreme corporal punishment. They don't feed them. They don't house them. They share their drugs with them. This is sad. We need a child protection organization. We need an honest one that wants their goal is to family reunify, to get the family together, to keep the family together, to fix the problems. Okay. Well, Vince can help, and he is helping. He does numerous of live streams. He does numerous where he talks about how bad the CPS is. So Vincent is doing it. He's working as hard to do it. He's fighting cases all the time. Now, JD hit the key a couple of times there and said, Mr. Trump, Bob. Okay. I guess I was Mr. or something there, or 3 quotes Trump. Okay. Anyway, I'm here to talk about CPS, and I'm hoping that CPS will get investigated because they need to. The way I see CPS is they need to be structured to have a board of directors or a board of supervisors. Every month, this board of directors meets to see how things are going, to make sure money is spending accordingly. Money that comes from the federal government has got to be an appropriate amount, and it's got to be tracked how it's spent. So any state that gets the money gives it to the county. The counties have in turn give them a financial report of how that $100,000 was spent or how the $1 million was spent. We need accountability. There is no accountability. A lot of CPS is rogue. They're bad. They're really, really bad. Now, JD asks, how does CPS have the right to be involved in the private lives of people? Well, it was Congress that mandated that a part of social services set up a child protection organization and protect the children from neglect and abuse. That was approved by Congress, signed into law. So social services is the one that creates it. They have social service workers. See, not only they're supposed to protect their children from neglect and abuse, they're also supposed to help out families in need, such as food, shelter, transportation, clothing, you know, education, and medical needs, and also help out with a job. That is one of the strong points. So if you're involved in CPS and you need help, don't be afraid to say, look, I need help with food. I need help with shelter. I need help with clothing. I need help with transportation. Social service has many facets. It's only been really stretched because we had open borders for so long, and we had every Tom, Dick, and Harry come from all the other countries. The bad elements came into our country. I think that's where where the COVID came from. I think that's where the measles came from. I think for these terrible murders, the lady running in the park in Athens, Georgia, that was brutally murdered by a person, didn't know that person, they didn't know each other, but he had a bad criminal background and from Venezuela. There's so many killings have taken place in our country from people outside of the country. We let the cartel run drugs in. With an open border, it was terrible. Year after year after year after year. Trump started a border. He started to close it. But the preceding president opened the border. And he had no rules or stringent anything. And the cartel was having a field day in Mexico. Now the cartel's on the run. Mexico is doing its best to keep the people and not have them come in the United States. I think that's why our CPS organization is taxed, our social services. In fact, it was at the point where I questioned that it'd be easier if I renounce my citizenship, leave the country, come back through the open border, and then they would give me food and shelter and education and a job. They give me starting at McDonald's at $22 an hour. Where else in this world can you come into a country with no borders and get a starting job at McDonald's at $22 an hour? I saw the sign. I have pictures of it on their glass. Starting pay at McDonald's in Surf City, USA, California, was $22 an hour. I know that's good money, and maybe that's not good enough. I know what it is not to have a job. I know what it is to be humble and be at ends meets. I've been really trying to get my life turned around. Well, JD says, it is that because we register our children upon their birth. Well, I think any child that's born needs a birth certificate. Now, when you use the word register, where does that information goes? Is it going to databases in the United States or what? There's nothing wrong with a birth certificate or being registered in the United States. Yes, maybe the guy in the sky can see you. There's been a lot of talks about microchips in you. I don't see that happening. There's a lot of things right now. Not everything that's happening is going to happen. But we need to fight CPS. We need that board of directors. We need accountability. They need to show. Also, we need good foster care parents, ones that are schooled and trained right. It's too loosely the system is. It's a very loose system. Now, I have about 5 minutes left of my live stream here. And I've been talking a little bit different. I usually talk about my rules, or I have someone with a comment or Coors Digest, or I talk about a lot of other things. But I hope what I'm talking about will give you some ideas that we together as a family in the United States have to fight the corruptions of CPS. You know, they call in lay people or mandated reporters, which are the professional people, to report a child with abuse or neglect. We need to have such a way that we can call in and talk about bad CPS, bad foster care. And it should be a system that's easy as for the call that they can be investigated. They're investigating our families, but they're doing it all wrong. They right away come to your home, they'll knock on the door. You don't know it, but you open the door, and by you open the door, you give them permission to come in, and they barge in. Then they say they want your child. A child should never be taken unless they're in extreme danger. I mean, where the child's being caught in crossfire between parents arguing or something of that nature. That child belongs with the family. If the family has done a hiccup, such as maybe they did drugs, or maybe there was domestic violence, they should be allowed to get classes or programs that will help them and then come back and reunify the family. My family was broken apart. There's no domestic violence. They were not in harm. They were taken by my social workers from their school of origin. One was in a private school, one was in a middle public school, and the other one was in a middle public elementary school. So we had 3 children taken from us. And it was sad because they did it all for retaliation. And you say, what do you mean retaliation? What do you mean? Well, it didn't start that way in the beginning. In the very first, I opened my mouth, which I should never have done. I allowed it in my house, which I should never have done. And I did not get an attorney. But I did start to respond like I always do when I see bad email. The CEO of Bank America, Ken Lewis, and I used to write back and forth because Bank America has been my bank since June 14th, 1964. It's my parents' bank since the early 50s when Bank America started. But Ken Lewis, the CEO, wanted to know firsthand from his customers. So he developed a report where I could write to him about the problems I'm having with Bank America. But that's no more. He's no longer the CEO. The new guy could care less and give the day about anything. No offense, I never met the new CEO of Bank America, and I don't think I probably ever will. But I do approach CEOs. I've been a CEO myself. I've been a president of international organizations and national organizations, sporting organizations. I've traveled to over 50 countries. I've lived in a half a dozen countries. I've been to almost every state of the union. And I have a lot of life experiences. And CPS is one that we need to really concentrate on learning about. And there should be those life classes that you take in school. We used to have them in high school where you had to carry a pillow, or they talk about pregnancy, or they talked about smoking or drinking. It was bad. I remember seeing films in the 7th grade. But I don't think we have any more of those life skills because teenagers need them as well as elementary schools and middle schools. I mean, there's, drugs and sex, things that are to get them in all kinds of trouble. The social media. Yeah, I know. One is with a car. Registration of a car or your children or yourselves is important. It's how they get you to vote, how they can track you for jury duty, and everything. So there's pros and cons, but I think registering, first of all, a birth certificate should be proved. Now, you should, as a parent, have the right to register your birth certificate. It should not be an automatic thing. You, as adults, have a right to your body. You should not have any microchips or anything in there. You don't want people controlling you. Hey, Chew Baby. Chew Baby is from Richmond, Virginia, and I'm going to have to end my podcast soon here. How are you, Chew Baby from Richmond, Virginia? I'm trying to. We're talking about things with JD. We're talking about how to organize CPS. Thank you, Chew Baby. I'm so glad to see you. Grant ownership, or at least a portrait ownership of the registered products, or in this case, a child. Anyway, JD, those are good to talk about, but we got to stick with CPS. I'm here to talk about a very corrupt child protection system in a lot of areas, at least over 1,000 of them. Because I've talked to over 1,000 people, and those have all been corrupt. They had one thing in common. Their children were immediately taken, and they were never given back. They had a horrible time with CPS. I have one child I cry every night that I don't see anymore. My daughter. She's 22 now. She's no longer a part of her family. My son still see her. I encourage that, but she has not wanted to see her. CPS has ruined our family. I lost my home because of CPS because I had to quick sell my home to hire Vincent Davis. I have a bad credit rating because of CPS. I have a very difficult time trying to get full-time employment. So CPS has done me bad. And yes, it's really bad. And I don't have the money to sue them because I could have sued them and won millions of dollars. But I'm afraid, like you all, to fight something, it takes money. Oh, great, Chew Baby. You start a group for people who need advocacy for CPS in my local county now. Oh, that's so great, Chew Baby. Thank you. We meet twice a week here in Virginia. That's great, Chew Baby. I hope the people appreciate you. Anyway, JD says, I'm telling you the reason why they have been giving the authority to take your children. Well, they may think they got the authority, but technically they don't. And if you have a good attorney like Vincent Davis, he'll stop the children and get them back. He got my 2 sons back. No, they have the authority to protect our children from neglect and abuse, but not to abuse our children and traffic our children and to kidnap our children and to alienate our children. They don't have that authority. You have to understand, CPS has no one controlling them. There's no board of supervisors, no board of directors. They're free to come and go and make up stories all they want. They use the police to intimidate you. They're out of control. A lot of them, at least over 1,000 of them. And that comes from countries as well as the United States. Now, Margaret says, sorry to say, but I believe the United States in the worst country than any other country for human trafficking. I believe that. Where I live is supposed the number one area of human trafficking. They're picked up so fast on our streets and taken to a ship on a container and waking up in another port as a sex slave worker or a slave worker doing menial labor. So I agree with you, Margaret. I agree with you. Well, yeah, registering the kids. You know, that's another thing we have to look at hard about that. Yes, by the court system. So they may have the authority, but they don't have the complete authority. Yes, it takes a lot of dollars. The fight does take money. Believe me. To be a president takes money to run for office. I can never run for president because I don't have the money that it takes to run for office. I would have loved to be president of the United States, and I'd love to correct our government. And one of the areas I've always thought is our government is corrupt. I mean, it is so corrupt. Why do you pay $15,000 for a toilet seat in the military? And I'm not talking about a jet airplane toilet seat. I'm talking about a toilet seat that you get at Home Depot or Lowe's for $20. But the military is charging the U.S. government $15,000 for a toilet seat. There's a group in Utah, Salt Lake City, and it's one of those cult groups that has a religion. And because they have a religion, they're, I guess, 401c or whatever that thing is, and they get free grant money from the government. They get millions of dollars every year. And what are they doing? They're trying to develop an alternative fuel. And they've been doing this for 10 years. Have they developed any fuel? They have not done one drop. And they're getting millions of dollars every year from the U.S. government. There is corruption all over the place. I see it every day. Anyway, I got to sign off. I want to start thanking JD for you coming in and talking what you ended up talking about. And Margaret, I want you the best of luck when you meet with Vincent. Chew baby, keep that group going in Virginia. That is great. Who else do I got in here? Margaret King is from St. Louis. So, God bless you all. Keep fighting for your kids. Don't give up. And this is Bob Pace saying good night. Don't forget, I'll be on at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. 8 o'clock. Good night.